I like that. Okay, anybody else?
Challenge. And five videos from Darren.
Challenge with 5 videos from Darren. Okay, anybody else?
Face your fear.
Face your fears. Face your fears.
That it's tougher speaking in front of speakers than regular people.
Oh, there's a good one. It's tougher speaking in front of speakers because they all know, right? They all know.
Everybody's a critic.
When you're speaking, you're really serving others with your ideas. I love that one. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. What I get from this all the time is I always try and take one nugget away from every speaker, every presenter. That's why when yesterday I said, this place should be filled with speakers. Filled. Not one speaker in the Tampa area showed up, of what we call professional speakers. You ask the people from NSA, you know what? They don't need the training. Really? Are you serious? I'll bet you if I went into the local event, and I'm talking about through the state of Florida, if I went to the local event and said, how many of you are making a 6-figure income from speaking? I'll bet you 4 of them could raise their hands. What about the other 90? I think there's close to 100 members in that group. What about the other 90? They're not making that 6-figure income, so why aren't they here? Always trying to get one more nugget, one more piece of information, one little bit of training that will transform them to that 6-figure speaker. Because almost everybody, in case you haven't been to the NSA chapter, they all say, I'm a speaker. Paul.
Just a inside, behind the curtain look. I still am not a member of NSA.
All right, and that real good point. Most of the real professional speakers that you will meet, right? Bill Walsh, right? Paul Fink. I'm trying to remember a couple of the others. I'm drawing a blank, but none of them belong to NSA. Why? Because just like if you join NSA, first of all, I looked into joining it. I've looked into joining it over my lifetime several times. But the recent one was probably 3 years ago. I said I probably need to get more into when I came to Florida. I want to join the NSA group, right? Be with some speakers, get around them. First of all, when I went to the first one, it was their national event. So all about having more people, bringing more people into the chapter. I walk in. I wear one of these tags. You guys got those tags on? That says, I'm new, right? Visitor. And it says Steve underneath. So I sign in. Now, I'm not new. I'm old. Many of them know me. They run across me in our travels. And I walked in, and do you know how many of them said, Steve, come sit with us? None. Do you know how many of them said, hey, Steve, good to see you? 2. When it came time to actually sit down, you know how many of them said, this seat is taken? So I'm there before, I'm like Paul. I'm there before most of the other people. And I walk in, I said, well, I'll find a spot. And I went to this table, they said, sorry, these are all full. Oh, how about this one? Nope, these are all taken. I ended up sitting at the last table at that whole group by myself until 2 or 3 other latecomers came. I was like, wow, this doesn't feel like home, right? Doesn't feel like home. And then I checked it out. I said, okay, how much does it cost? They said, well, are you a member of National Speakers Association? I went, no. They said, well, you have to be a member of the National Speakers Association before you can be a member of our chapter. Oh, so I looked that up. I think it's $1,000 to become a member of the national chapter. And then it's another $1,000 to become a member of the local chapter. Kristen, you want to grab these pieces of paper for me right here? And I was like, so it's going to cost me $2,000 to become a member of this group. They went, well, yeah, but only the first year. Oh, whoopee. Right? And then I said, okay, so you guys offer training. Now, I've been training speakers forever, right, since I taught college back in 1990. And I said, what is it? I said, so you guys offer free training? And they went, no, not free. You don't get anything free. And so you had to spend more money to get speaker training at the National Speakers Association after spending $2,000 to join. So I'm not necessarily saying don't join. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying for me, it wasn't a good fit. Because why should I pay for speaker training from people who hadn't been speaking nearly as long as I had? Because most of them are the first and second and third year people who are training in the speakers organization. The rest of the people are too good to be training. Don't ask me why that is. I don't understand it. If you go to some, and I've only heard this, I don't know, I've heard at the National Speakers Association, because a lot of the people who are dedicated to the NSA love the conventions. They say, boy, you'll meet people and they'll give you opportunities and give you jobs. And I went, wow, they don't even say hi to me at the local chapter. What makes you think they're going to give me jobs at the national event, which is out in Las Vegas a week after I'll be in Las Vegas getting paid to speak? Okay? So think about that. Join if you need the joining. Otherwise, come join us. We'd love to have you. We'd love to help you. I tell people all the time, if you join from one of my events like this, I already told you yesterday, it's $6,500 for me to teach you for 6 months. You join from this, I drop it to $5,000. Real simple. $5,000 gets you 6 months worth of absolute top quality training, where I will teach you how to be a top quality speaker, give you leads to all these opportunities, right? And introduce you to other great people. Okay, that's my ad for today. Who has a question before we move on? I have a question right now. Why is Rosie holding a soccer ball, right? What is that all about? Man. So I want you to know, I met Rosie. I don't know how long ago I met Rosie, but here's what I'll tell you. I have never met a more dynamic person than Rosie Paulson. Rosie Paulson, who has been honored as one of the 50 most influential Hispanic business leaders in Florida, is a native of Ecuador who came to the United States as a teenager. A public speaker and business trailblazer, Rosie owns Rosie Paulson Enterprises, S&R Services, a company that brokers Medicare coverage for people all over Tampa Bay, right? Now, how many of you understand how complicated Medicare is? Anybody ever had to try and get to a certain age, you got to get it. But legalese, all that stuff. Well, I will tell you that this is a person you need to talk to, because Rosie's doing a thing called Matchmaker and the Medicare Beast. Rosie Paulson.
Have you ever felt that you were born in the wrong place? That everything around you just doesn't feel right? A lot of people go through life thinking that is the way it is, and there is nothing you can do about it. But then there is what Steve Jobs quotes: the people crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. When I was a little girl growing up in Ecuador, there were boys' sports for boys and girls' sports were for girls. My father started coaching a soccer team, and he immediately recruited my sister as an offense player and me as a goalie. Now, I love being a goalie. And what my father did was match my skills and my passion with that position. It was brilliant. However, he was frowned upon for what he did. Why? Because soccer was not a lady-like sport. Soccer was a boy sport. One day, I got to the soccer field and I was a little confused because all these boys were playing with this young girl, a niña, because she was an American. But I had to argue and negotiate my way, which, by the way, I think my leadership skills started right there because I had to have all these compelling arguments to make it in the team, especially as a goalie, because as a coveted position, goalie was what everybody wanted to be. But they were all playing with her because she was an American, but to me, they gave me a hard time because of my gender. So I started wondering, what is an American? I befriended her because I became very inquisitive, and as you can tell, I'm very friendly. And I find out that she was a missionary from this country named the United States. And in her country, women can play any sports they want. Did I mention there were missionaries from the United States? All righty. So I realized then that I had the solution. So I ran back home and I asked my mother. I told my mother, finally, Mom, I know how I will be able to play soccer with no restrictions. And she goes, Mija, how? That's it. We all have to move to America and we need to meet this guy named Jesus. And we will be okay, Mom, we will be okay. Eventually, the boys accepted my sister and I. We created a team of boys and girls. We all embraced that feeling of winning, and we won many, many, many games. We all understood and embraced that we can achieve more than we thought that we can achieve. I love that feeling of community we have there. Most of all, I learned that in order to succeed, you have to stick and continue to do something, even if it's difficult. I call that ñeque. Now say it with me. Ñeque. Ñeque. Now, ñeque is a Quechua word that means grit, resilience. Something that it's born within you. And that's what you use and you go back to when fear sets and stops you from continuing to do it. Ñeque was also what determined for me to heavily influencing my parents to move to America 33 years ago. And ñeque was also what helped me understand that I needed to learn this big world that I call the Medicare beast. Why? Because it was such a complicated. At age 33, I decided to have my license, and I read that book from cover to cover. In case you don't know, I'm an overachiever, and I have to get things done. Now, this book has rules and regulations, and it has all these pages, and there was this quote in page 6, and you have that same quote in page 33, but then it contradicts it. So I read page 6 again, and then I read page 33 again, and it was the same thing. So I figured, if a beautiful, sharp young woman understands that, and I was confused, can you imagine a seasoned, ordinary person in the perhaps 70s and 80s having to select that plan? I realized then that I can make a difference by simplifying the healthcare solutions for the Medicare recipients. Now, have you ever heard the word Medicare? Some of you said, oh, that makes me old. Some of you said, I can't wait until I get Medicare because I can finally get health insurance, right? But most people don't even know what Medicare are. Now, have any of you visited the Medicare site? Let's not even go there. There are different dates, there are different parts. There are Medicare Advantage plans, there are Medicare supplemental plans, there are Medicare Part D plans. It's so confusing and so overwhelming that the site has its own glossary. No wonder people get so confused by trying to pick a plan. Now, I realize that I can make a difference in this community because I quickly found out that my purpose was that, simplifying the healthcare solutions for Medicare recipients. So I started living my purpose in 2009 when I started my first entrepreneurial venture. My wonderful husband, Scott, supported me to open my own Medicare brokerage firm. Now, when you get certified for Medicare, you have to do it every year because plans change from year to year. The first time I walked into that room, it was a room full of gentlemen. Now, I felt a little bit out of place. Who in the audience have been to a place, you walk into a room and you go, oh my, I'm in the wrong place. that was me. I felt that it was because I was a woman, because I was the only person from another country. Everybody's first language was English, but me. And I felt everyone was looking at me. And so I thought, the reality was that it was all in my head, and it was my fear of rejection that was preventing me from doing that. Now, most of us at that moment will walk away and will never look back, right? But see, then what happens? That guiltiness sets in with the shoulda, coulda, woulda. You know, we want something so bad, but you worry about what people has to say. It became like the soccer field all over again. The only difference now is that there were adult men in suit. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this because somebody needs me. And I'm going to change my community by doing this. That gave me the courage to just walk into that room and start doing what I do today. And I live my American dream every single day with this. Now, owning a business is a very difficult task. Abraham Lincoln says, the best way to predict your future is to create it. The best way to predict your future is to create it. See, this field of going, or this passion of going out there and helping people has brought me to so many opportunities that has allowed me to change my community. Heroes are born heroes are born by adversity. In 1988, my family and I, with a lot of efforts, we immigrated to this country, the United States. We all are assets to society. My parents right here, they're retired teachers. My brother is an engineer. My sister works for a dentist's office. And I have built not one, not two, but 3 thriving, successful, and profitable businesses. See, in America, regardless of where you're coming from, your gender, regardless of your religion, beliefs, or who you are, you can make it in America because that is the American dream. See, clarity gives you power. And I embrace the American values every single day of life, liberty. Oh, that was my family, by the way. So I embrace my American family, I embrace my American values. Sorry. Let me do that again. So I embrace my American values of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. My happiness is helping people with their Medicare options. And your job is to, I'm almost there. Your job is to prepare for a secure future. But mine is to tame that Medicare beast. I am Rosie Paulson. I am your Medicare matchmaker. Stay pure, stay positive, and stay inspired.
Hey, Rosie, thank you very much. What was your title?
Matchmaker and the Medicare Beast. What a great title, huh? Tell me you wouldn't click on that if you saw that hanging out there. You know, one of the things we talk about, we don't always share it, but it's when you're going to be speaking, like for instance, if you don't get the keynote. So if you're doing a fee speaking thing, and you apply to these associations, these organizations, and they say, hey, we're doing a convention and we need a keynote. You apply for the keynote, but you should also apply for every single one of the breakout sessions. Okay? So they might be paying $15,000 for the keynote. They might decide you're not right for the keynote. But if you've applied for the breakout sessions, hey, there's a quick $5,000, right? You've already prepared one speech, so would you prepare another speech for $5,000? How many people say yes? Okay. One of the things that will be vital to your success is that you have a great title. I don't care what you're talking on. If I'm going to be talking on leadership, I don't want to put my title as leadership. That's not what I want to do, right? Nothing to do with leadership. What you want is your title to be grabbing so that they go, wonder what that means. And then inside you might talk about leadership when they're looking at your whole thing. But it's also, what are you going to title it? For example, my title for this one coming up in Vegas is Tomorrowland, Future World, and You. And it's really all about attitude and how we're going to grow for the future. But if I put down, hey, I'm going to help your people with their attitudes, guess what? I wouldn't have got the job. Your title has to be grabbing, has to catch their attention. We use the word interrupt, okay? It has to interrupt, just like your Facebook posts, just like your ads. If you're doing ads on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, any of those, they have to interrupt my pattern. So I'm scrolling. That's why there's a couple companies out there now, they call them headliners. Have you seen those? Hey, boy, you want to have your stuff seen by a lot more people? Join our company, right? And then they charge you $25 a month or something to put a headline banner on the top and the bottom or whatever. Supposedly when you're scrolling through and you see that headline, it'll stop you. You pause just long enough to look and see, do I want to click on that ad? Good point. Yep. Yeah.
Your feedback on a speech you gave. So, you guys saw my speech today, but I owe a big time for Steve here. He has given an incredible amount of information and feedback, about constructive feedback. Everything was constructive. And after taking that feedback and incorporating that, rewriting my speech and everything, and then completely throwing it out and then writing the outline, it was only because he was able to give me very action-oriented bullet points that was able to help my speech today. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That's the kind of stuff you like to hear, isn't it? Yeah. So when we talk about success as a speaker, as going forward, so reach out to a lot of people, ask their opinion. Now, what you don't want to do is ask the people on Facebook, okay? Everybody on Facebook thinks they're an expert. Have you noticed that? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Somebody will say, I want to know which title I should use. And then they'll put the title of their book, like 2 or 3 titles. I want to know which book cover looks the best. And they'll put out 3 or 4 book covers. And this one will get like 52, and the other one gets like 12, and the other one gets like 7. And you and I look at it, and we're like, none of those work. None of them. As a professional who teaches people how to headline stuff, how to write stuff, how to title stuff, none of those should work. And yet you write that, and you say, hey, you should reach out to me, we should talk. Maybe I can help you with designing this cover. You know what you get? My friends have already decided that that's the cover that I should use. Really? What's their expertise? What's their knowledge level? Reach out to the people who can help you. Reach out. You've met people here in the last 2 days that if you reached out to Dr. Phil, right? If you reached out to Paul, if you reached out to Brooke, we would all give you a piece of advice on what we think it should look like. Does that mean you should use it? No. It's new ideas, new input. But reach out to the people who have already done it, who are already doing it. Not to the people who are the experts who've never done it before. I was teaching somebody a couple years ago, and you know my thing on storytizing. I think if you haven't taken my course on storytizing, you've missed the boat, truthfully. But I said, this is what you need to be doing to storytize your talk. She said, no, you don't understand. It's my talk. She'd written a book. She said, it's my talk. I went, okay, but you're going to be giving that talk to people who you want to listen, right? She said, well, yeah, that's why I tell my story. Nobody wants to hear your story. You guys know that? Nobody wants to hear your story. What do they want to hear? How your story can help them. That's why I tell you, you got to tell your story using their memories, their emotions, and I've forgotten the other thing, but their memories, their emotions, right? And so that's what you have to tell it at. If they keep, so they kept saying, I. If you're giving a speech, and you read your speech, if you hear your speech and really focus on the I's or the my's, and there's more than a few in there, throw it out. Nobody wants to hear, hey, I did this, and I did that, and I did this, and then when my time came and when my wins, nobody cares. It's, hey, you know what? This is what I was experiencing. Have any of you ever experienced that? This is what I went through. Have any of you gone through that? This is my struggle. Can you guys relate to that struggle? And people start to go, oh yeah, back to the streetlights when it's time to go home. It's important that you start to talk in their vernacular. You with me? And so it's also important you understand every day when you talk, guess what you should be doing? Talk using their voice. If you're going networking and somebody says, what do you do? How many people here network? Most of us? Okay. What do you do?
What do I do?
Well, I ask you first.
I work with people's minds.
Just going to pick on Paul. I don't care what you do. How many people care what Paul does? Really? How many people care? No one. Right? What do I care? You care? I'm interested in, now, I'm interested in what Paul does if I think it can help me. You with me on that? So my answer, every time somebody says, and I'm out networking, what do you do? My answer is always, oh man, thanks for asking. Can I ask you a question first? Well, yeah. I'm sorry, what do you do? And then they tell me what they do. And then I have 4 or 5 qualifying questions. How long have you been doing that? Do you like doing it? Right? Are you successful doing it? Why did you come to this event? Because if they're really successful doing it, they shouldn't be at this stupid networking event. You with me? Because they're making too much money already to waste, somebody said, 2 hours, 3 hours coming to a networking event. So they're here for one reason and one reason only, to get more business, to find more people, to connect with more people, to create more relationships. So my job is to find out, right, more about what they do that's not succeeding. So after I say, so why are you here tonight? And he says, well, I'm here looking to meet, looking to find, wanting to, and I might say, oh, that's cool. So how's business? Everybody says what? Good or great? Great. You know it's not great, or they wouldn't be at this stupid networking event. So I presume it must be okay. Your business is okay. And I say, what could make it better? And when I ask people, after I've asked those first 3 or 4 qualifying, what could make it better? They almost always go, oh, well, I could use a lot more business. Oh, well, you're not getting enough business right now, I presume then. Well, I could always use more. Great. What one thing could help you get a lot more business? What one thing could help you get a lot more business? And you know what? They'll always tell you one thing. They might have 3 or 4, but they'll always tell you one thing. Oh, well, if I could meet, if I could have, if I could get, if I could be introduced to. And then my response to that is, great, Paul. If you met someone who could introduce you, help you with, would you be interested in talking to them? And Paul always says, well, yeah. Good, let's set up an appointment. And he says, okay, because I can either help him or introduce him to somebody who can help him accomplish the reason he came here today. And I can't tell you how many times I walked away from a networking event, right, with all the information from Paul. And as I walk away, I said, hey, it was a pleasure meeting you. I'm going to go meet a couple other people. And he goes, okay, thanks. And I walk away. What does Paul know about Steve? Nothing. Nothing except Steve can help him with his problem. Do you understand that? I can't tell you how many times. Because then when I call them up to finish the appointment, because we've already got an appointment scheduled, but you got to verify it and you got to make sure they're going to show up or you're going to show up. And they go, by the way, Steve, what do you do? I said, I'll be glad to share that with you when we get together over coffee. Again, don't tell them anything. I can help you with your problem. That's all you got to know. And that's all most of us want to know, isn't it? if somebody walked in here today and said, Steve, I can work with you on your SpeakerTalks seminar to put 150 people in the seats and put $100,000 in your pocket on the next one. You want to sit down with me? What do I say? Absolutely. How fast can we sit down? Okay? All I want to know is, how can you help me with my problem? That's all you want to know. That's why you came here today, isn't it? How can we help you with your problem? Now, we've given you several pros who can help you with all kinds of problems. We've given you other people who can help you with the smaller portions of their problem. That's the Brooks that I love to bring in, because Brooke helps me on a ton of the small things. Right? We got Dr. Phil, who can help you overcome your own issues. I don't want to say I had any issues, but he helped me overcome a couple. He'll tell you, Steve, you got so many issues. He won't tell you that, but he tells me that. So all I want you to know is, when you go networking, when you go to speak to somebody, don't tell them about you. Don't do it. Hey, what do you do? What do you do? Boy, so glad you asked. Can I ask you a question first? Yeah. What do you do? If and when I know what they do, then I get to know if I can be of any service to them if they're going to be a client of mine. True? How much do you want to know before you decide that they can be a client of yours? How much is one client worth? How much is one? I had somebody that the other day, and you know what they said? Well, it depends on what kind of client. It depends on this, it depends on... Yeah, I know that. I'm asking you, what is one client worth? So I'm going to ask you guys, how much is one client worth to you in your business? 20 grand. Pardon? 20 grand. I like that. Boy, that's a lot of money. Right? I had somebody the other day say $1,000. I said, for the lifetime of the client. They said $1,000. You're in the wrong business. But I didn't tell them that. Right? It's like, okay, $1,000. If you're happy with that market, then take that market. But do you know how much one client is worth to you? Do you know how much one client is worth? So if you have to go through, as Paul had told us, 100 people to find one client, is it worth it? So if I have to talk to 100 people and ask them all those same 5 questions to see if they are a good fit for me and they're worth 20 grand, is it okay to go through 100 people? Yeah, right? I'll go through 1,000 people real quick. How much is, let's see, 1,000 people, if you got 1 out of every 100, you'd have 10 clients, right? 10 clients at 20 grand. Who's happy with 200,000? Yeah, duh. Okay. I talked so long that Eli left the room. Okay. How to be the #1 salesperson in your industry. Think about that. How to be the #1 salesperson in your industry. Eli Marcus is a professional up-your-game motivational speaker and the host of the Motivation Show podcast, where he interviews the world's best motivational speakers, New York Times best-selling authors, celebrities, health experts, mega successful entrepreneurs, and more. He co-publishes New York City's largest circular visitor magazine, The City Guide, right? And also Speakers and Experts magazine, which reaches corporate meetings and events and meeting planners and helps professional speakers get paid for speaking. I think I want to get to know him already. He has worked with who's who of celebrities, including Michael Jackson, Les Brown, Judy Collins, Mark Victor Hansen, Davy Jones of the Monkees, and even more people. Please welcome Eli Marcus.
Question. How many people here would like to be the #1 person in their entire industry in sales? Now, put a raise of hands here. Quite a few here would like to be #1. I want to ask you another profound question. How many people here have actually worked for an hourly wage? By raise of hands. Hourly wage. How many people here have earned in the neighborhood of about $10 an hour? Anybody? Okay, a few people here. I can kind of tell your age a little bit, you know, you go back to the old days. How many people here have actually worked neighborhood of about $5 an hour? Anybody here? Okay, yeah, all right. $5 an hour. How many people here have actually worked for $1.15 an hour? Anybody here? That rich? Okay. Now you're in my class. That's where I started. $1.15 an hour. You know what I did? I flipped hamburgers and hot dogs in a beach club in 100-degree weather in New York City. And I have to tell you something. That was hard work. It was so hot that I literally hung out with the frozen hamburgers and the frozen French fries inside the refrigerator so I can cool off. And you know something? I don't regret a minute. Didn't make a lot of money, but that's where I started to learn some lessons. I started to learn what I didn't want. I didn't want $1.15 an hour any longer. And then I learned something called selling. What is selling? An opportunity to make something called a commission. A commission. A commission is the opportunity for you to put out a tremendous amount of effort and a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of work and actually get what you're worth. So I started to work for this thing so-called commissions where in the world's famous arena, Madison Square Garden. Anybody been to Madison Square Garden, New York City? That's right, they call it the world's famous arena. Now, didn't play for the Knicks, didn't skate for the Rangers. What did I do? I went back to my old buddies, hot dogs and hamburgers, and I started selling them in the seats of Madison Square Garden. I had a desire to be the best salesperson in Madison Square Garden. So how did I do it? Well, I found out where you can make the best commissions. And it wasn't flipping those hot dogs and hamburgers. So I stopped selling hot dogs and hamburgers and I started selling beer. Get your cold beer here. Get your cold beer. And you know what happened? My brother was working there. He's a little bit older than I. And he started saying, I want to be the #1 salesperson in Madison Square Garden. So he started carrying 2 trays. I was carrying 1 tray. And guess what I did? I started carrying 3 trays. Exactly right. And I became the #1 salesperson in Madison Square Garden because I carried 3 trays. I did what no one else was willing to do. My wrists were hurting, but my pocket was filled. And I loved the feeling of being the #1 salesperson in Madison Square Garden. Then an opportunity came along where somebody said to me, would you like to travel on a circus train? The Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus train. You know, down here in Sarasota, they have the Ringling Museum. So I immediately said, yes, crazy idea. I'm going to live on a circus train with the monkeys and the elephants and the tigers, hopefully not too close, where I don't have to smell them all. And I literally did that for the entire summer. And I became the #1 salesperson for Ringling Brothers, selling souvenirs for them as well. How did I do that? There's no magical secret. I just was willing to do what the others weren't willing to do. I started earlier, and I finished later, and I out-hustled everybody. Now, when I used to ski, I used to watch everybody go and have their hot toddies, their 1.5-hour breaks. I was not the break kind of guy. It's like, why are they taking a break? And you can go down there and shush that mountain 20 more times. So by not taking the breaks, my learning curve was a lot faster. I became better and better and better, whereas it took others a lot longer. Now, most people who might be invited to go on a circus train would be like, that's crazy. Now, I can tell you one thing. It was not a Ritz-Carlton. It was in a bunk. And there were little creatures crawling in that bunk. And the guy below me, I find out, he seems to only have one song. Ring my bell, ring my bell. It's all he ever played. Now, I have to tell you something. He had a few tattoos in some funny places. And then he tells me the story about how many years he spent in the penitentiary. This is the guy below me. What's my point? My point is, despite that madness, I took a chance. I took a chance at something that someone else would say, nah, too much effort, too much work. I took a chance to come here today. 5 hours across the state to be here. Always take a chance. Always do something that someone else won't do. As Steve was talking about earlier, people that belong here are not here. I say yes as often as I possibly can. I moved on to work for the United States Chamber of Commerce. And that's when I started to dress up. I started to wear something called the three-piece suit. Anybody know what a three-piece suit is? I see we have a gentleman here who knows what that is. He's actually in one. Yes, the 22-year-old kid in a three-piece suit. The young whippersnapper. The youngest salesperson for the entire U.S. Chamber of Commerce, over 500 of us. I'm the youngest guy. I started ranked number 286 out of over 500. I didn't like that number. 286, that was pretty mediocre. Then what I started to do is I started to find out what the champions were doing. And I started to live in the bookstore and buy every book I possibly could to learn how to be better, how to create a better mindset. I bought Think and Grow Rich. Anybody ever hear Think and Grow Rich? Anybody read that? Yep, 1935, Napoleon Hill. And then I read The Power of Positive Thinking, Norman Vincent Peale. Anybody remember that book? Absolutely. And I devoured every book I can. The Psychology of Winning, Dennis Waitley, all the classics. And I started to develop my mind and understand the winner's mindset. So when I was working for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I had a rich dad and a poor dad, okay? Not actually, but theoretically, because I had two sales trainers. The first guy was completely opposite the second guy. The first guy, what he's doing, he's very laid back. In fact, he starts lighting up his cigarettes right in the office when we're talking to a prospect. And I'm, wow, that's crazy. But somehow it worked. The second guy was complete opposite. He was almost out of his mind. He was like airborne. He was a former Army Ranger. And he kept crying airborne every time we walked into an office. Like he's going to attack the guy. And he's anything from laid back. All he kept doing is closing. Now, I didn't necessarily jibe with all of the rich dad's philosophy or all of the poor dad's philosophy, but I took parts of both. And then I incorporated my own. I was an amalgam of the rich dad and the poor dad, plus my own, plus Napoleon Hill, plus Norman Vincent Peale, plus Dennis Waitley, and I can go on forever and bore you. Every one of those people got into my head. And I learned something called modeling. You watch what other people are doing that are successful. You don't have to take all the parts, but you take the parts that resonate and give you results. And I rose to be the #1 salesperson in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, not because I'm prettier, not because I'm smarter, not because I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I just decided to use my mind in a different way. Now, back then, anybody here the 3-martini lunch? Anybody ever had any of those? The 3-martini lunch. Well, that was in vogue back then, back in the old days. So while those guys were out there having a 3-martini lunch saying, well, we met quota today, well, guess what I did? No 3-martini lunches. I was there at 9 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, nonstop. Now, there were no business cards. We didn't even get a business card. Half the people didn't even know what the U.S. Chamber of Commerce was. I had to walk in, do something called a cold call. If there was a Guinness Book for World Records, I probably would have it in cold calling. I'd rather have it dunking basketballs because it pays a lot more, but I made over 30,000 cold calls. Now that might be the definition of insanity, but back then, it's what worked. Would I do that again? Heck no. Did it work? Heck yes. I learned to evolve. Fast forward, worked for a company called City Guide magazine. Still the first guy, still left, 33 years later. And what I learned is there is a better way to make money. What I learned is to negotiate something that put me in a position where if I really busted my butt, which I'm pretty good at doing, I was going to earn a whole lot of money. And so I negotiated something that every single person I discussed it with told me is not going to happen. It's impossible. It's never been done before. And the people I negotiated with told me, we don't ever paid like that. And I said, well, you have a choice, and I have a choice. This is where I need to be. And they agreed. And I opened up doors for them that they never had opened before. Worked for another company. It's called Apple Vision. I was a pioneer in television inside hotels. It wasn't working. They had 5 different reps, and they had a rep company sell for them, and the company was failing. I was the last resort. What I did is I changed the way they did business. What they were trying to do is go to local merchants, and they were trying to sell advertising for 25 hotels. And what I did is I said, if I'm a retailer or a restaurant, why would I want to advertise to a hotel that's way down the road that no one's going to come up to? So I decided to break it up per hotel. Now, if you have a restaurant a block away from a hotel, would you decide maybe that might be a good target for you? The guests are in that hotel a block away? Hands up, anybody think that makes sense, right? So that's what I did. I developed a whole new system. Everything in your mind creates your success. Your mindset is everything. If you think lack thoughts, as Norman Vincent Peale said, you will get lack results. What the mind can conceive and believe, the man can achieve, and you've heard that before. But how many of you have actually internalized that? How many of you have made that your mantra? That's my mantra. The mind can conceive and believe, the man can achieve. Everyone in this room here has to understand their value. Your value is whatever you determine. If you think that you're a $1.15 an hour worker, you're a $1.15 an hour worker. If you think you can be the #1 salesperson in your industry, I'll see you all at the top. Thank you very much. I'm Eli Marcus.
Thank you, Eli, very much. Okay. I want the judges to turn in your judging sheets. Anybody else has judging sheets? Please turn those in also. Yes. Da, 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 da. Thanks, dear. Yep, last speaker coming up, but Phil is not being judged because he's one of the staff, one of the judges. So one of the toughest things about being low down on the list, and I shouldn't say low down, it's towards the bottom of the speaker list, is so many of the people have to go home. That's always amazing to me. Here's what I will tell you. If you're traveling, okay, always give the other people the same benefit of the doubt that you would want. Okay? Always give the other people the same benefit of the doubt that you would want. If you're traveling, don't travel so you have to leave right after you speak. Support the event that you go to. We had 13 speakers, okay? At least 5 have gone home. Now, I always say to them, I understand you got to go home. I understand. But I don't. Okay? I'm not going to give anybody grief. If you said, Steve, I got to go right now, I'd say, great, have a good day. But think how those other speakers feel when you all go home. They were there for you. I expect everyone to be there for them. And I would think that you would want the same courtesy. So if you're going to go someplace and speak, please get there the day before. Stay until the event is over. Now, if that means you have to fly out at midnight, fly out at midnight. Always be there. Go ahead, Paul.
Play full out.
Play full out.
24/7, everything you do, or don't bother.
That's right. And we appreciate who stays. We recognize who stays. We know who stays and how important it is to the people who are finishing up. Especially if it's a sell from the stage kind of thing. I don't care if you're not going to buy. I don't care. The fact that you're a butt in the seat makes you feel better. Like Paul said, hey, there's 3 people here. If I start with 3 people, I hope to finish with 3 people. Okay? If I start with 18 people, I hope to finish with 17 people. If somebody has to go home, their kid is sick, something else happens, I appreciate that. Everybody else should stay. That's anybody here go to sports games or used to go to sports? I used to go to hockey games up in Moline, Illinois. And it made us all nuts. We're hockey fans. We're the Quad City Mallards fans. And you know what? A third, if not a half, of the fans in the stands went home before the end of the 3rd period. We'd always go, where are you going? Where are you going? Where's all the people going? Well, we want to avoid the rush of traffic. You're either a fan or you're not. Get out. Leave us alone. Don't come next time. Support the team. This is your team. Any event you go to is your team. One thing we have obviously lacked is team support. How can I support you? How can I support you? How can I support you? It's so vital that we support each other. Get in early, stay late. Do you agree? Now, I don't know, how many judges are still here? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, Phil, 4. So we're only missing one, okay? Why isn't the 5th judge here? And that's a good friend of mine. That's Woodgie, right? Woodgie said, I have another commitment. Yeah, I know, I counted her. Right? But Woodgie had to go. Now, when he's saying, sorry, Steve, I can't stay, and I'm going, that's fine, Woodgie, that's fine, because my job is not to convince you to stay. But if you can't stay to the end, why agree to judge? Sorry. If Woodgie was here, I'd probably be talking to him right now, because I would talk to my friends the same way I talk to you. Let's talk honesty. Let's talk full out. I love how he says that, full out. This is your team. Whatever team you get on, whenever you get on it. I love the people who go to these summits, right? And there's summits. And my wife was attest to this. I was on a summit a few months ago where they said, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you got to bring people, and I'm out there really pushing and bringing people. And then, boom, they put you in a room. In a room. And in that room, hello, there's supposed to be people. In my room, it showed 16 people. Now, have you guys been on a Zoom room? How many people have been in a Zoom room? Okay, there were 16 faces in there. If you go to a Zoom room, put your camera on. I don't care if you're homely as sin. I don't care if you're dressed in your absolutely worst outfit. Put your damn camera on. The people who are speaking deserve the courtesy of knowing you're listening. Now, if you got to go potty, get up and go potty and put it on, whatever that is. That's great. Come back in 5 minutes. Do that.
Yeah, not only put your camera on, and I know, as I look around this room, we're speaking to the choir, as they say, but, put your camera on and play full out, or don't bother. We all know that as we're on those Zoom calls and our camera's off, so is our mind, and we're distracted and we're doing other things, or you're not listening, just get off the Zoom call. Don't kid yourself. Don't play half-ass. Play full out, because that's how the people that, and I know with my Zoom calls, as I have people that have cameras on versus the ones that don't, the ones that the camera's on, I'm able to talk directly to them and engage them directly and make it the most out of it by a quantum leap. That's huge, and so often I see people kind of playing partial, and I know they're not really getting anything out of it. Why are they wasting their time?
And I don't care if it's a networking group, I don't care if it's a summit, I don't care. Like I was telling you, my wife and I got in this one, there were 16 people in this Zoom room. One had their camera on. One. Now, I'm supposed to be selling to these people because it was a sell from the stage type of thing. I come on, and there's 16 people on my Zoom room with one with a camera. I greeted that one. I went, hi, Steve, how you doing? I said, anybody else wants to say hi to me, please turn on your camera. As you speak in a Zoom room like that kind of thing, you're supposed to ask for people to participate. So if you agree, put a yes. If you like this, put a 1. If you do this, say this. Try that. I talked for 50 minutes. I never got one other comment besides the guy named Steve, who was on for about 20 minutes, and then he got off. And then about 10 minutes later, he got back on. And then about 10 minutes later, he got off. And then he sent me things saying, hey, I want to buy your program at this. I went, okay, great. And then he disappeared, and I never heard from him again. But what I wanted to tell you is, I don't care how many things, because then I started to go, wait, are these people real? Are they real? Not one time did any one of the other 15 people put a number, a thought, anything in the chat. So were they planted there to make me feel better? Paul.
That's when you start playing games. Like, so we've got, and I do this every so often, I've got a 1-minute special. Anyone who replies yes in the chat over the next minute gets a free, and I give away something that's worth $1,000. Just to test it out, see if anyone's paying attention.
I offered $100.
What?
I offered $100.
Yeah, there you go.
I offered, hey, if you want me to send you $100 cash, please put a 1 in the chat. $100. I said, I guess nobody wants $100. Okay, that's what saved me $100. But you knew they weren't live then. I was still doing my thing because I got it recorded. So I finished my stuff and I got a recording of it. That's great. But what I'm telling you is, if you don't put your camera on, as far as we're concerned, you don't exist. Tell other people that you know. Call them out. If you're on a networking thing and Bobby is in there and he doesn't put his camera on, next time you get a chance to talk, say, hey, Bobby, why don't you have your camera on? We'd like to see your face. There's one I'm in, and the lady says, I don't turn my camera, because somebody asked her. They said, how come, Barbara, how come you don't turn your camera on? She said, I've heard too much about identity theft, and I don't want anybody to take my picture and use it for something else. Yeah, and you want to go, get off. Why are you on a Zoom call? Why are you on a networking thing? You're certainly not wanting my business if you don't even trust that I'm not going to steal your identity.
And the same thing happens in live events. Live events, be participatory in the event, be present, be focused, and as a speaker, don't be how do I say this effectively without make sure that you're not just looking to fill a room, that you're looking to fill a room with people that want to participate in what you do. That just having butts and seats, it doesn't really give you a lot of value. And I know for me in my rooms, I will shun people and chase people out that I feel are not ready to engage. And I'm not shy about that. It's like, and like Steve, you say too, it's like, you don't like it, get out. Well, we don't need to hear. We want the people that really care, that want to change, that want to do, that want to apply. We don't need the butted seat. And you will be more effective as a speaker when you have that attitude and that approach that you're really there to work with people that really want to learn. And focus in on them. And the rest.
And if you're selling a product, a lot of times, was it Paul, I think, somebody asked questions here and they said you're not supposed to ask questions. But in those kind of situations, you say, does anybody have any questions? If somebody gives you any kind of hassle at all on the question and answer time, the only answer you should be giving is, this doesn't sound like your kind of program, so I'm just going to count you out. So go ahead and sign off if you want. Don't be afraid of offending someone, because there's lots of us out there who are listening to that person going, what a jerk, because some people want to throw a wrench into what you're doing. Well, what about this? How about that? Can I do this? You know what? This doesn't sound like your kind of program, and you're probably not somebody that I would choose to work with. So go ahead and sign off. Don't be afraid to call them out. I have yet to find anybody who goes, matter of fact, I've got more comments afterwards saying, hey, I'm so glad you called that person out, as opposed to, you're a jerk.
That's true in live events as well. Call them out. I've had whole rooms applaud when I talk about shining a bright light that the devil doesn't operate in bright light. Just shine a bright light on the heckler in the room. Just focus every attention on them. Go. So what do you really have to say? Like, why are you acting this way? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, are you okay? Do you have a bad day? If you start shining a bright light, they leave. I've had events where the heckler I called out on the first morning of the first day and focused in, and they left and they didn't come back after lunch. The whole room applauded. They didn't come back.
That's right.
Oh, the energy in the room is so much better now. Thank you.
That's cool.
But you would never know that, and especially as a new speaker, you're always, I don't want to offend anyone. Man, dare to step into that.
How many people watch a podcast or listen to a podcast or watch somebody on Facebook who other people consider really offensive, and yet you resonate with them? Those are the people you really want in your group. You want to sell more product? The people who resonate with you. The people that I'm going to offend aren't going to buy my product anyway, because I will say something eventually that will offend them, and they'll go, well, I'm not going to buy from you, Steve. Okay, don't, right? And so I'm always pretty open and honest. I say what I think, in case you guys haven't figured that out yet. Yeah. But that way, the people who are with me are with me. You may not buy like Brooke said, you may not buy my program for 6 years, but one day you'll know that it's value, right? Okay. Our next, yep.
Can I make one comment?
Absolutely, Paul.
Regarding seeing the faces of your audience, as a speaker, if you're giving value, you need that value to be
And that's important. So always, when you start, if these people aren't turning on the camera, just tell them, hey, I really need you to turn on your cameras. If you need to go take a potty break, if you need to go get a food break, if you don't want to be seen eating on camera, that's great. But please come back. And I need your camera working to show that you're engaged. And just call them out. If you spend the whole time on a dark camera, I presume you're multitasking, which means you're not going to hear what I'm talking about anyway. So go ahead and sign off. Tell them, sign off. I don't need your blank screen, because when you have 15 blank screens, guess what somebody else is more likely to do? Blank screen. Oh, I really wanted to take this phone call. Blank screen. Oh, I really wanted to eat more cereal. Blank screen. Oh, I really wanted to multitask and do this. Blank screen. And pretty soon everybody on your call is blank screened out. So just call them out. Okay, our next speaker, breakthrough specialist, successful entrepreneur, speaker, and best-selling author. He's also a dapper dresser. He's a CEO and founder of Business Breakthrough International. He's worked with thousands of people over 30 years. He'd tell you millions, but I'm telling you thousands. He was able to discover a revolutionary way to avoid self-sabotage and win big. How many people would like to win big here? Okay. He now works with business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives worldwide to achieve even greater success in business and in life. Right? Listen closely to our next speaker, who's discovered the hidden inborn trait that stops us from achieving the success we want, and has uncovered a surefire way to switch it off immediately for massive success. And I'm telling you, he knows his stuff. Some attendees today will be invited to participate in his amazing program called Transcendence 101, Sabotage to Success. If you get the opportunity, if you get that invitation, I highly recommend you take advantage of this powerful program. So everyone, I want you to give a really good welcome to Dr. Philip Agrios.
Okay, thank you everybody. First of all, give a big round of applause for Steve for putting this on, for all the sponsors that came out, and especially for all of you who are still here. What's an awesome expectation. You are the winners in my book. Have you ever, even for one quick second, ever felt that something was stopping you from what you really wanted? That no matter what you did, it was ineffective and you felt hopeless? Anybody? I know I have many a times. And I've seen people, countless people, just sabotage their business, their life, their career. Just getting this close to it, and then, bam! Something stops them. Do you know anybody like that? I'm here to tell you that I'm able to have discovered why that happens and how to shift that off instantly. Would you like to know how? Excellent. Now, if you're going to be an expert in self-sabotage, do you think you need to experience it? Lived it. Do you think? Now, would you mind if I share a story? Not only affected me, but thousands of others. Would that be okay? I remember one morning, I woke up, pitch dark, dead silence. I'm awake. Really? I'm like, I'm up, might as well go do some work. So I go to my study, and I'm going through my drawers looking for something, and I came across a list of my goals 5 years prior. Ever had that happen to you? I was really excited. Got that out, looking it down, got to the last one. Didn't achieve one damn thing on that piece of paper. Not one. I was like, wait a minute, this makes no sense. I'm listening to all the gurus back then, right? I had all their cassette tape programs. Remember cassette tapes? That's how far back I'm going. Right? If you don't Google it, or if you don't remember it, Google it. Okay? And I just felt disgusted with myself. I was disappointed. And I remember when you sit in silence for a while, you ever sit in silence, right? You kind of go deep. And something said, you're not being taught something. And I went out to try to find that out. And what I did was able to go through some massive stuff. Because I warn you, when you go out to try to find something that no one else has ever discovered before, you will have experiences to break you down in order for it to come out. Experienced that before? And what happened was that I went through financial ruin a few times. Death of my father of brain cancer. Became the sole healthcare provider for my mom for 7 years, for her being very ill for 7 years until she passed away. Went through a horrific divorce. Lost my practice 15 years due to a disability. I had a thing called thoracic outlet syndrome, numbness down both my hands. I had carpal tunnel in both hands. I would get out of bed feeling that I was walking on glass. And I was in my late 30s. And being a chiropractor back then and a functional medicine practitioner, it just didn't work out. So I went on disability. One of my daughters I almost lost my daughter to suicide. They said if my ex came home 10 minutes later, she would have been dead. Now, I can keep on going. Trust me, I can keep on going. But this is why I created this course called Transcendence 101, Sabotage to Success. Because it's packed with the last 3 decades of my research. Anybody here would love to transcend their business, their personal life, or their career? Anybody? So, why do you think people sabotage themselves? Anybody? Just blurt it out. Somebody, blurt it. What's that? Beliefs. Since you were the first one, you get a free 30-minute free consult as a bonus to you doing. Beliefs. Who else? Fear. Who else? Mindset. Great. All great answers. May I tell you what I've discovered over the last 30 years working with thousands of people from all walks of life and ages? May I? I was able to discover that we're born with a protective trait, and I call it the inborn sabotaging trait. Not that it undermines us, but it protects us from the very success that we seek, because that success is subconsciously more painful than staying in your ineffective behavior. And during that process, I didn't believe it. I was like, wait a minute, this trait is causing all my problems, my present day problems. It's causing every problem throughout my entire life, even down to childhood. And this is now, I can predict my future that every time I'm stressed or imbalanced, this trait is protecting me. I'm like, this is no way, it's too simple. So I went out to try to disprove it. And you know what I found? I couldn't. Over thousands of people, whether or not you were a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company or a child, it worked. Because I was able to discover how to switch it off. That it was actually an impossibility for you to sabotage your personal life, your business, and your career. And I call it the antidote. Why? Well, if you're bitten by a venomous snake, do you want the antidote or you want something that might work? Which one? If you're in your life, business, career, it's not working well, do you want the antidote or do you want something that might work? Okay, let's try that again. Which one? There you go. That's what you really want. That's the antidote. By the way, that's your inborn sabotaging trait kind of pulling you back, saying, oh, I really want to talk to them. But that's part of that whole thing. Because there's only 2 things we do. We protect, we grow, we expand, we contract. We're vibrational beings. We give and take. And the reason what happens is that inborn sabotaging trait creates us to be protection, and the antidote allows us to grow and to evolve. Now, what is the inborn sabotaging trait? Well, there are only 3. Out of 7 billion people or more now in the world, there are only 3. There are the director saboteur, the supplier saboteur, and the communicator saboteur. And the saboteur is a person who sabotages himself. And what I'm going to do is just going to give you a real brief information, a description of each one. This goes much, much deeper, but just a little description. We all have all 3. You may hear a little bit about it, but you do this more often when you're uncomfortable and you're in stressful situations. A director saboteur is a person who's scattered, who's all over the place. Get 99.9% done, doesn't finish it, and goes something else because it's more fun. They don't like to be told what to do. They have a lot of chaos in their lives. Does that sound like any of you here? One. Okay, great. Thank you for participating. Now, if you feel that's really something that you really want to do, I do have a possibility of you can be directed here after my talk, and we can have a conversation whether or not a program you might be interested in. Supplier saboteur. You have a hard time saying no. You overly supply, you overly give because you mistake that self-nourishment equals selfishness. So you don't give to yourself because you are more focused on everybody else except you. You rather hurt than someone else. Does that sound like anybody here? Okay. The third one is the communicator saboteur. Communicator saboteur is a person who doesn't express themselves that much. They overly process things. They don't confront too much because they don't want to feel stupid or embarrassed, so they hold back and they think about it too long before them to express. Does that sound like anybody? That's my wife, my communicator saboteur, and once she understood her antidote, she was being passed from promotion to promotion in her corporate role. When she started to use the antidote, she started getting promoted because she was finally expressing her brilliance. So those are the three. Now, unfortunately, I don't have enough time to give you the antidote, but what I'm going to do, we get into that a lot in the course, but those are the three only things that you do. And that's when you go into a very stressful situation, that inborn sabotaging trait stops you from evolving, because as soon as you start to evolve and you feel uncomfortable, bam, you're back into protection. That's how it works with thousands of people that I've worked with over and over and over again. So what's really interesting is that I was asked in an interview, why do you get out of bed? And I said, when you discover something that no one else in the world has, no one, you have an obligation, but a passion within you that everyone needs to know this because of the impact I've made with thousands of people. When people come up to you and go, you've changed my business, you've skyrocketed my business, my personal lives are doing so much better, I cannot believe what's happening. When your career, when you move from one section to maybe your own business, or you get the promotion, when people tell you that, my goal is to impact 1 million people or more. That's why I get to bed 5 o'clock, sometimes at 4:30, because to me, if I get up at 5 and someone gets up at 7, I get an extra 2 hours. I get minimally 40 more hours a month to impact people. Now, some of you met this gentleman, Bill Walsh, yesterday. For those who don't know him, he is one of the top 30 business coaches in the world. And when I met him, it was at another competition that I was doing. And what happened was, he was intrigued of what I was saying. And I gave him the inborn sabotaging trait. I gave him his antidote. We discussed it. I coached him a little bit. Within an hour, he was up on stage using the antidote. He came off the stage, he goes, oh my God, it was great, and he's still utilizing it. So someone with Bill Walsh's, a multimillionaire, very successful, is using this because everybody's looking for even greater success. Would you not agree with that? Are you looking for greater success? So if he's seeing it immediately, imagine what it can do for you. Now, what I would love you to do is to look up here, put your phones down, and I want you to close your eyes for a minute. And I want you to do is I want you to see, if everybody can do that, that would be great. Close your eyes. And I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to imagine something in your business, in your personal life, or your career that's not allowing you to move forward. Can you visualize that? Can you feel that? What is that costing you at this moment by not moving forward? And now, imagine having your inborn sabotaging trait allowing you to understand why that's happening at that moment, and then using the antidote to move forward. What would your life be like, your business or your career, in a month? Can you see that? Can you feel that? How about 2 months? 3 months? When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. If some of you are who's in business, who's an entrepreneur or an executive, anybody here who tried to close business, okay? You know people that don't close that well? Well, Dr. Rich Herbal, he wasn't doing well. He had a 30% closing rate. When you don't close well, it is because your inborn sabotage trait's stopping you. And I also have a 6-step blueprint that shifts that immediately to help you close more. Within a month, his income went from 64.32% in a month. He went from 30% to 100%. I went, there's no way. I called him out on it. You're lying to me. He goes, no, it's actually happened. What would your business be like if you closed in 10%, 20%, or even 30%? What would that income look like for you? So that's something I've seen people invest. Their investment into this program was amazing, where they can get 5 to 10 to 20% times their investment in a month. So, what's this is all about? The offer, the business, is a 5-week live group coaching course. It's a video and live training. So if you have an hour to spare a week, that's all I do. Because the difference between my coaching group and someone else's is because when you get on, and I know your workbook, and what the workbook is you get your inborn sabotage and trait and antidote, and you have a digital workbook. And when you start typing it in, you will start populating formulas that I've created. It took me a year to create this. And these formulas come down to one sentence, and your life comes down to one sentence of why things happen to you. And once you do that, it helps you to really see how things are working in your life. There's another thing called the personality stress sequence. Oh, by the way, there's 2 other traits. There's a dominant trait, a mediator trait, and a saboteur. And that personality sequence, once you know that, you can tell yourself about yourself everything. You'll know why you failed, why you succeeded, why you have the relationships you have, why you have the relationship with your children, why are you still having relationships with people you don't care about, why you have loving relationships. It tells you everything about you. Also imagine you having the one word, the one subconscious word that 80% of the time that you use stops every goal. This one word has stopped every goal in your past, in your present, and in your future. What would that do to you? The knowing in your personal and your business, what would that do if you can know that one word and by switching it to start achieving your goals? Would that be something of value to you? Yes? And that's what happens. And there's plenty more. And that's why I call it Transcendence 101. How to start transcending past more and more. There's nothing like this in the world. Are you tired of hearing the same thing over and over? Are you tired of learning the same thing over and over? Would you like to learn something new that you've never heard before? Anybody? I promise you, you've never heard this because no one's teaching it, because I'm the only one who has discovered this. And the reason why the antidote works 100% of the time is because of a law that I discovered. And that's why my book is called Life's One Law. It's a law, and the only thing that works 100% of the time is a law. And over the 30 years, it took me over and over again to really get into this and to really see with thousands of patients. And that's why I went through what I had to go through, why my family went through it, and everything else. And I have no regret, because it allowed me to discover and be here, to be blessed to be here with you and to share this at this moment. This program is only $9.97, the investment. Now, if in 2 weeks you don't think it's worth your time, you get 100% money back guarantee. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I have never, ever had anybody ask for the money back. When I do one-on-one coaching, I actually guarantee my results in writing, and no one's ever asked for the money back because they've always achieved their results. That's how powerful this program is. I believe in giving back. So 10% of the proceeds go to the Veterans Connection. They help veterans with PTSD and many other things that they go through. All the recordings are there, so if you miss just one, you have the recordings. You can get involved with other group people to understand other things. I've had a woman go, now I understand why my husband does that. Imagine knowing the inborn sabotage trait of your spouse, of your children, why they do what they do, and then use the antidote to switch it. I had a manager come up to me one time. I was in my, I do a workshop, and I show how business owners and staff subconsciously sabotage the business. The reason why is because your business has its own sabotaging trait and antidote. And when I teach them why their inborn sabotaging trait is affecting enhancing the businesses, and then by using the antidote to the other antidote, it magically, amazingly allows your business to shift. So he comes up to me and goes, you know, my son's always upstairs playing video games. I can't get him downstairs to enact with the family. So I asked him a couple questions, ascertained his son's inborn sabotaging trait, gave him a much more in-depth antidote. Within less than a week, his son's downstairs and interacting with the family. And within 2 months, their relationship skyrocketed. And the reason why, because he got so serious involved in this, he realized he was the one that was pushing his child into the room. He realized it was his inborn sabotage and making fun of him and things like that, trying to help him, but he was pushing his son into the room. He went back and used it with his employees. Amazing results, and their department flourished because he realized he was the problem. So imagine if you have a spouse or whatever, and you try to support them by supporting them in the way they need to be supported instead of what you think they need to be supported, which is really how you need to be supported. By doing so, it allows you to understand them and conflict neutralized. So for those who are very interested in, I have an enrollment sheet up here for you. And if those of you who are still on the fence, not only is it your inborn sabotaging trait, because a lot of times you're still resistant. You know, I heard this before. But I'm guaranteeing, I'm giving you everything I can possibly do to eliminate that. But if you don't really like it, then please do not sign up. We only have people that are engaging. We have fun on there. People get involved. It's such a great program. Steve and Kristen were on that program. Great testimonials on there as well. Now, I'm going to give you 2 more bonus. Because you stayed here this long, no one else is going to get it. People who go on the website will not get it. I'm going to give you a 30-minute free consultation for those who sign up, and then my online course called Rise Above Adversity. I give you 5 techniques that will neutralize stress immediately, guaranteed. If you went through a horrific event in your life, I'll show you the benefit. You wonder why people who you can't stand show up in your life? I'll show you why and how to shift that immediately, and so much more. So again, the process is $997. If you feel that's too much for you, I give financing that majority of people be able to afford. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for staying. It's been a great experience, and have a fun one, and I'll be right here when you're ready. Thank you so much.
Thank you a lot, Dr. Phil. All right. So that pretty much wraps up what we've got. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to make sure that you tweet out or whatever, Facebook out or social media out, that the event is ending and that you had a good time. The last 4 speakers or whoever is still in the room, I would like to have you come up after the event's over, right, and give us a testimonial of what you experienced during the event. So you spoke. Did you have a good time? Do you recommend it to others? Right? Is it something that you think more people should participate in? And so then say, hey, please come join SpeakerTalks next time. And then we'll put a post up there.
Can I have a suggestion? Here there are other entrepreneurs and business people, right? Can everybody come and say what they are looking for so others who have in their network, can they connect them?
Oh, so. Yeah, so if other people want to come up and say what you got out of SpeakerTalks and want to participate, yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to have you. What we're going to, go ahead.
Okay.
Miguel Terrera.
Then I'm going to give all this feedback. Okay. Couple of tips. then I'm 100% sure, because all these many years have told me that, you are not going to take everything from me. There are things that you are going to take because you think that is valuable and is going to help you. Okay? Then take whatever you think that is good for you. Second tip, don't try to solve everything at once because you're going to get crazy. Okay? Then go for the first couple. When you manage and master those couple of things, then go for the next two. And that kind of thing. Okay? Then, Linda.
Now, please don't open those yet, because we're going to be announcing from the judges and the winners and
Tim.
other stuff is.
Where's Tim? Not Tim?
Oh, Tim's gone.
John.
So take those home with you, look at them when you get home. I don't want anybody crying while they're here. I'm done.
Kristen is here still?
Kristen.
Okay. So far, when is just Tim?
Got everybody? Everybody that's here? Okay. Kristen, you want to come up? Okay. Now's the important stuff. The judges have made a decision on all the speakers we had today. And we're going to announce the primary speaker, so you get to grab a microphone. Best speaker of the event, Kristen Zapato.
Nice try.
I know, that was mean, wasn't it? Okay, I turn it over to Kristen.
Oh, good. He just did that to prank me. Nice. Thanks a lot. All right. So it was close. And I mean, everybody did such a wonderful job. I just have had the best last couple of days. Yeah, we'll do runner-up first. And that goes to Anjan. Oh.
Get a picture taken with Kristen if you would.
Hey, pause and pose, pause and pose.
It's heavy.
Perfect. And also using it for a paperweight.
Congratulations,
Great
Anjan,
job.
really. Good job. Great job, everybody. Anjan. Ta-da. Thank you, Phil. And the moment you've all been working hard for the Speaker of the Year Tampa 2021. Ready? Drum roll.
John.
Did you announce it on the microphone?
I did.
Microphone's not working. All right, John, you got it, buddy.
He's coming up. He heard me.
Congratulations. Thank you. Yeah, cool. That's great. All right. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you staying to the final. And if there's anything we can do for you, reach out to us. We want to make your life better, easier, more successful for all of 2021 and 2022. Thanks a lot. God bless.